Welcome back to What Arty Noobs for General Disturbance. This is a 105 leFH18B2, the French Tier 5 Premium SPG that we know as Fifi La Pew Pew, and most other people know as a leFhy, Leaf Blower, or leFH if you happen to be Jingles. This one is located on the north spawn of Abbey, and it's under the command of Running Hawk. Okay, game's underway. 105mm, which means no stun. But it's a very accurate gun, and this is the gun that the Germans produced the most of, the artillery gun they produced the most of during World War II. So if you're going to be shelled by an artillery piece by the Germans, this is probably the one that would be doing it. It only does 410 alpha, but don't let that fool you, because it will penetrate 53mm of armor. It's got a burst radius of 1.91 meters, and that means that he only needs to get a near miss, very near miss, to actually track you, do some damage. So if he can get a shot near the enemy, he can potentially disable it, and once it's disabled, with the incredibly fast reload, which is just something under 8 seconds, he can fire another round into you before you can fix your tracks. So unless you use your repair kit, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Now with this new monitoring system, somebody's saying pay attention in the Abbey Road. These are more recent replays. I'm actually doing a batch of these to try and get as many as I can done in a short period of time, because we are building up far too many videos. Lots of people have been sending in their replays, and I know I do appreciate it, we really do. But obviously, the more replays we get, the longer the time interval between these videos coming out. We'd rather people see the videos when they can still remember what was on them. A few people have just recently seen videos which they sent in months before, never turned up until now. Oh, we got a long shot there and it hit, and it's a penetrating round right on the rear of that boogie, or buggy. And he's actually tracked him, and now he's taking damage. But he's burned his repair kit, but too late, he's gone. Okay, so T-3485, he's dialing in to get accurate shot, rounds out, and no, the guy pulled back just in time to avoid the shot. But an M10 RBFM has been seen in the distance at the back, and he's moving forward. He fires a round in, bit too long, he didn't give enough lead there. Now the IKV is stationary, but he's aiming just slightly beyond it there. And when he did smack it, he smacked him for 35 hit points, but that's mostly because he actually pulled back just at that moment. Okay, the enemy's got a Ram 2 coming up near that tower, and a KV-1S in the western channel. Now that KV-1S, yep, he's marked the target. Direct hit, 120. You can see I use the old-fashioned marking systems to tell people that's what I'm after. Obviously they'll see the new one, not the old one, but I do wish Wargaming wouldn't interfere with things like this, because they've actually made the notification system worse, not better. Okay, T-3485 went into the Abbey grounds, but Running Hawk's not going to deal with those. He's going after these enemies down to the back. In fact, that T-3485, he's out of range. Yep, the Fifi hasn't got the range to fire the entire length of the battlefield. Okay, he's aiming inside the Abbey grounds again, but can't see any tanks. Ah, KV-2 and a KV-1. They've come around the other channel on the western side of the map, and we're trying to line up a shot on the KV-2. Fires around it a bit late. Hits the rock. Unfortunately, the KV-2 moved before he can get a chance, but the KV-2 is moving up to shoot, so he's obviously loaded. Rounds out from the KV-1, he ducks back just in time. Running Hawk's loaded heat, and you see the KV-1 moved up to shoot, hit the enemy target. Oh, he set light to that KV-1. He set light to him. He got a nice hefty chunk of hit points, 363 for the penetrating round, and he's done the same now to the KV-2. Heat rounds, if they hit the target, do a lot of damage, and that one landed in the ground next to the KV-1, but he's dialing in another one. He's going for it with the heat, and that one hit the tracks, I think. Now this is probably going to be his last heat round. He's firing at the KV-2, gets a hit on his engine bay, another penetrating round for 363. The heat rounds do penetrate if they hit the target, but they do less damage than the HE If the HE gets a penetration 310, if the heat rounds get a penetration, it's only 350. But of course, they've got much more chance of penetrating because they've got 104 millimeters of penetration. Okay, he's lined up a shot on the KV-1, and it's a heat round, and he tracks him. But he's still loading heat, and this time round he's going for the KV-1S. He fires around in, hits him on the rear, on his tracks, didn't pen, but they are coming back to that corner. So aim where you think they're going to appear to your teammate, and that's where you will get the shot. Okay, so on that corner, rounds out in the KV-1S, he tracks him. He's dialing in for another one because the guy's immobilized. Can he get a shot in time? Rounds out. Well, that one didn't penetrate, so maybe it didn't hit the right spot. But he fires another one in, and that one just makes an expensive hole in the ground. Heat rounds do have a good reaction, but they are very expensive. 4,000 credits a shot, so you need to be careful that you don't waste them, because otherwise all your profit will be gone from a battle. You may win the battle, but you may have a big expense bill at the end, and that one's just made a big expensive hole in the rock. Okay, still firing heat. Oh, and that one hits a dead wreck. And the other KV-1 came down the edge of the cliff and has killed our Stug. He fires around in again. He makes an expensive hole in the ground. And he's now firing HE, and the KV-1S is gone. So the score's 9-9, and he's out in the open now. He could actually move a bit closer to the enemy, because most of the enemy are actually in the south end of the map now. And the only ones he's got shots on are the ones that are closest to him. T1 Heavy rounds out. Long fight time for the shell, but it's a hit. 122. He's firing a long distance away. Remember, this is over 2/3 of the battlefield. In fact, 3/4 of the battlefield. But they're now one tank down. Now, prospectively, it looks like he might actually have the high caliber in this game so far. My mods tell me that potentially he's done enough damage to those heavies and to the other enemy tanks. Lining up a shot on the T1 Heavy. Needs to let it dial in before he shoots, otherwise it could be inaccurate. Rounds out. This should be hit. It is, and a big hit. It's a penetrating round. 409. He's lining up another one, fires it in. Can just make this T-3485. We missed out on to see what happened to that shot on the T1 Heavy, if it hit or not. He fires one at the T-34, moves back just in time to avoid shots. Yes, he's now decided he does need to move forward. I did say that. You need to move forward if you're going to get shots on the enemy. There's only that M10 RBFM that he needs to worry about. Is in the church ground, in the Abbey grounds. But he now wants to nail that T-3485. Pulls back, and there's an explosion. So he didn't hit the target, or at least may have only splashed it. So the scores are even now. They've got 5, we've got 5, but he's going for the T1 Heavy. This could be a kill if he can get it on target. Misses it with this shot. He's got 20 rounds of HE left, so he's got plenty. Rounds out the T1 Heavy, who can see the explosions landing around him, but he's not reacting to them. If shells start landing around you, move, because it means that the Arty's homing in on you. Most ordinary players, they blame Arty, but it's actually themselves they have to blame, because they didn't take note of the signals that were coming their way, that they were being fired at. Well, he's now decided to change position because we are at a disadvantage. It's 3 versus 5. We lost the attack force that was down in the south. They've all been wiped out, and they're now anticipating the enemy's going to be coming this direction. Our P43 and M10 have decided that they're actually going to pair up and move down the west side of the map. And so in response, Running Hawk's decided the best thing he can do is take a defensive posture, and he's decided to go over this rock in this corner, because there's only 2 ways you can actually come at somebody on this corner. Through one of those 2 channels, directly in front of him, or from the side, or from above, of course, if the Arty's firing at him. They do have an enemy Arty, but it's a SU-122A. No, he knows that there was an enemy M10 in the Abbey grounds, but he can't see them. Ah, right. Now, the P43 and the M10 decided they're going to go up and watch over the cap from the west side of the map. If the enemy does try to come and cap, which they more than likely will, then Running Hawk's going to get shots on them as they go into the cap, and they're going to be doing the spotting, and they'll get some shots as well. Now, the enemy are coming up, and it's just around the corner from Running Hawk, and he's just noticed it. Has he been spotted? Yes, he was. He has to move. And he turns around to engage the T-34, who fluffs his first shot. And he knows enough to actually try and get behind Running Hawk, but he doesn't. And Running Hawk gets the shot into him to kill. But he knows the T1 Heavy's coming round as well. He's hugging the rock to prevent the enemy Arty having a go at him, but now he's loaded and takes out... Did he take out? No, he didn't take out the T1 Heavy. T1 Heavy got him, and it's now all down to the P43 and the M10, but the score's a bit more in their favour. It's 2 versus 3 now. Unfortunately, he's got one of these new Polish mediums to deal with, and he rams him, which was a big mistake. Although the DS loses hit points, the P43 is just down to 1 hit point now, so 1 shot. Oh, and the DS dies instead of the P43. That's a turnaround. Which means now that the enemy RT and the M10 on the enemy team are the last 2 alive. And this M10's only got 11 hit points. So a team of only 12 hit points in total are taking on an enemy RT, which is probably 100% health, and the M10 that's in the Abbey grounds. Now, I reckon that M10 in the Abbey grounds is going to go straight back to the cap and try and start capping. The M10's decided to go look for him in the Abbey grounds. He might be AFK. The P43 in the meanwhile, he's overlooking their cap, which I think it would have been easier and better for him to go looking for the enemy Arty and find him. Either of these two guys, well, they haven't got much in the way of hit points. In fact, actually, the M10's asking the P43 to follow with him or come with him. In fact, they're saying capture the base. Well, the M10's decided to go into the Abbey grounds because that's where the enemy M10 was last seen. He might have flipped himself. If he has flipped himself, that's great news because they can finish him off and win. Well, they've got to find the Arty still as well, but this is the corner where he was last seen. It's very easy to flip yourself if you're not careful. Lower tier tanks do have a tendency to turn turtle if they run themselves up against something. Okay, we're now following the P43. And there's the 2-minute warning. So if they're going to cap out, they need to start thinking about getting to the enemy cap. I think they're going to find one of the enemy, more than likely the RT. And the P43's decided to stop and wait for the M10 to spot anything and hasn't found anything. What's he doing now? Is he hunting? There's the M10. He did go back to his cap and he's very low on hit points. And the other M10 finishes him off, which means now it's just the RT. And Running Hawk's flipped back to himself. Not helping here, Running Hawk. We can't see what's going on with the battle if we're just looking at your wreck. Why did you do that? Okay, there's the enemy Arty. He gets one shot in. The M10's coming up, so any second now the SU-122, even if he takes out the P43, he's a dead duck. Yes. That's it. They won the game. Yeah, a little tip there, Running Hawk. Stay with the action. Don't go back to your wreck unless you're flipping between different tanks. So let's have a look at the end of battle stats. It's an ace tanker for Running Hawk in the 105 leFH18B2. He managed to get a Bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits. He managed to get 10 in this one. A Gore's medal for doing more damage than 8 times the hit points of his own vehicle. And a high caliber for dealing the most damage in the game. And his win rate was 6,835 altogether, which is Super Unicum standard. If we look at team score, we can see, yes, he's easily the high caliber. Look at that, 2,759 hit points. The next high scorer being the M10 with 1,918. And he picked up a Top Gun for 6 kills. And the next high score after that was the enemy T-3485M that Running Hawk killed, 1,781. He made the classic mistake of reversing back up on an Arty. Once he'd actually passed the gun, he was actually safe because he could actually then get around behind the Arty, but unfortunately backed up and put himself right in front of Running Hawk's gun, and Running Hawk just casually took him out. When it came to kills, it was the M10 RBFM. He got 6 kills in that game, 2 kills for Running Hawk, the Stug, the BDR, the T-3485M on the enemy team, their M10, their T1 Heavy, their KV1, their KV1S. Lots of people with the same number of kills. Only the M10 distinguished himself by getting 6 kills and surviving the battle. And when it came to base XP, it was the M10 again, yes. 1,173 to him, 1,127 goes to Running Hawk, and 635 goes to the BDR, who died. Running Hawk fired 34 rounds in that game, got 15 direct hits, 6 penetration, damage, splash damage on 10. Damage of 2,759 hit points, of which 2,758 were at more than 300 meters. So obviously one tank he left on 1 hit point, or was actually at close range. Actually, I think that was the T-3485M, wasn't it? It was a close range shot, so that's why it's a difference. 4 hits received, 3 penetrations, 1 non-penetration, and 7 enemy vehicles damaged, 2 killed, and 782 hit points of damage assistance. On a premium count, he earned 62,978 credits, but he fired an awful lot of heat ammo. Yeah, and I did say they are expensive shells. You don't want to be making expensive holes in the ground because it just wastes all your profit. After repair and ammunition resupply, he actually made a loss of 556 credits. Now, that's not a lot, but it is a loss. And the loss was mainly because he kept on firing heat ammo when he didn't need to. He just could have shot back to firing HE and he would have made a profit for the game. He earned 1,690 XP for 846 for completing the mission event, 676 for this being a premium vehicle, and took away 3,212 experience points altogether. So I think the lesson from this battle is don't keep firing heat, even if you load a lot of it, unless of course you want the effects and you're just doing it for fun. Don't expect to make a profit though if you do. It does sound great when you actually hit the ground and it goes fizz instead of actually going bang. But let me tell you, you can easily burn through a huge amount of profit. If you actually want to have a bit of a laugh, actually, loading AP instead of armor-piercing rounds, instead of heat rounds, can actually be quite funny as well, because those shells do actually have to hit to do some damage, but they also have very high penetration. And so firing an HE rounds will near miss will do damage, but an armor piercing round, which is a 105mm armor piercing round, which is sort of like a tier 7, tier 8 shell, hitting a tier 5 tank is going to do a huge amount of damage. So if your target is stationary, carry a couple of rounds of armor piercing and only a couple of rounds of heat maybe, and then use HE for the rest of the time, because otherwise it's going to cost you a fortune and you'll never make a profit using the leFH. If you enjoyed that replay, please give this video a like and do subscribe to our channel please, and thanks for watching.